broadcasting live from California. Get ready for an hour of pure, unapologetic conservative talk radio. This is The Wise Conservative Show.
Oh boy, is it great to be back after a week I spent in DC listening to some of the most influential and powerful conservative speakers that I have ever heard. It was a great trip, and I came back with a lot of knowledge and a lot more faith in the conservative movement. Hello, this is the Wise Conservative Show. You're here with Dakota and Connor Wise. We're broadcasting live at youthrevolt.org or Spreaker.com/The Wise Conservative Show. We're also trying out this Facebook Live business. I'm not exactly sure how that's going to work or if we're going to keep it, but we're going to give it a shot. So without further ado, we're going to jump into the biggest news of the week, and that has to be the GOP just shattering into tiny little pieces, and Donald Trump is the man who seems to be dropping it.
We all know that Trump has had a whole history throughout this entire election season as kind of, splitting the party a little bit. We've had the Never Trump movement. We've had, those who are diehard Trump fans from the beginning who sort of just threw out Never Trump people. Right. There's been a lot of hostility within the party. And now after his recent comments on Cant, I believe that's how you pronounce it.
I believe so, yeah.
And then also not supporting Ryan and, was it McCain? And McCain, I believe, in re-election. He's basically putting another split within the party. GOP officials are trying to now talk together to figure out a way to kind of bring the party back together. And they're meeting together to actually, discuss why Trump's off the hinge. Reports are saying that he even is urging Trump's family to try and sway him back onto the right track and not say things as rowdy as he has been saying.
Basically, at this point, they're trying to get anyone who has any sort of influence over Trump to try and calm him down, because this past week, really the last 36 hours, they've been very, very, very rough for Donald Trump and the rest of the Republican Party. Just coming out today, a Fox News poll, of all places, is showing that Clinton has nearly a 10-point lead over Trump.
That's a Fox News poll, people.
And this is coming after last week, where Donald Trump even had a 4 or 5 point lead over Clinton. And that has all been erased over the last 36 hours.
We've seen this all happen very quickly, as my co-host just said, and they're trying to mend it a little bit. Mike Pence just said today that he endorsed Ryan in his actual race to be reelected, and he said that he was doing it with Trump's blessing. They're obviously trying to kind of rekindle the fire into having everyone support them again. But we all know that this is going to actually lead to some big splits.
It looks like Stubby wants to join in. So basically, at this point in the race, we're less than 100 days to go until we choose the next president of the United States. And Donald Trump is blowing it. Donald Trump needs to stop talking because at this point, it is getting desperate. During the primary, people could say, write it off as Donald Trump doesn't know what he's doing. He's just learning. This is his first race. And even some of the controversy helped him. It gave him press time. That old saying, there's no such thing as bad publicity, really seemed to hold true during the primary. But right now, he is falling like a stone in the polls. The American people seem to be tiring of his shenanigans and really lack of statesmanship.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. At a recent campaign stop, he's even admitting that there's actually a huge possibility that he loses this campaign. He said, quote, "Wouldn't that be embarrassing to lose to crooked Hillary Clinton? That would be terrible." Now, keep in mind, this was also in the same campaign stop where he said that we've never been this united as a party.
Now, this is all coming in And at the same time, there are rumors that senior GOP officials are actually exploring options to replace Donald Trump should he start losing so badly that it becomes essential to take him out, to replace him as the nominee for the party. But that's a last-ditch effort. That would almost 100% guarantee a Hillary Clinton presidency.
Well, this is going all back to the suspicions that we had at the very beginning of the presidential election, where people were talking about a huge chasm within the GOP, a split, essentially, where we would have two Republicans running against each other. And this actually might be a reality now. I know for a couple months now, we've been saying how, this split isn't going to happen anymore. We're sort of starting to unite. Never Trump people are starting to switch over to Trump. But the more Donald Trump opens his mouth, the more it seems like the split is more and more likely to happen. And so we see that it's honestly, it's a new threat to our party, a old threat that's coming back to our party. And if Donald Trump doesn't stop talking, stop going off of the script, which he seems to be doing a lot more recently, he's definitely going to ruin this party.
And it's real interesting because Connor has had his issues with Trump, but I've been on the Trump train fairly early. You know, during the primary process, it was basically Trump versus the establishment. And I've been very hesitant. You know, I've defended Trump as much as I can. And that's saying a lot because there's been a lot Trump has had to work through. But it's getting to the point where there's really no defense for some of the things that Donald Trump is doing. It almost looks like he is trying to purposely lose this election because I can't honestly comprehend why he's saying some of the things he's saying.
He just keeps going off the rail. That's all it is. And he's done it throughout the primary season, actually. It's just now that it's a general election, the news media is more focused on him, and they're actually trying to make him people want him to seem presidential now. It's not just whoever can get the most time in the news anymore. It's who can get the most time in the news, but also look good while doing it.
And what's real interesting is that Hillary Clinton should be a very easy candidate to beat. A new poll that came out today as well showed that only 33 or around 33% of millennials actually approve of Clinton. That's a huge audience that the Republican Party should have been able to tap into. But because of some of these needless comments that Donald Trump has made, there's really absolutely no way that he will ever garner the support of the majority of the millennial voter base. And it's really a shame. We had a real opportunity to not only keep Hillary Clinton out of the Oval Office, but to expand the voter base of the conservative movement. And that's not going to happen at this point.
Well, after that convention, we had a really great convention, and it went smoothly. People came out of it, a lot of people who were never Trump, they came out of it thinking, you know what, this might actually work out. But now it seems like that convention didn't even happen. We should be up maybe 10 points in polls against Hillary Clinton, but instead it's the other way around. Instead, Trump is down 10 points in polls, and this is on a Fox News poll, a poll which should be definitely skewed towards Republicans.
More so, even, is the fact that the Democratic convention was not all that great. There was a lot of disunity. Of course, you had close to 1,000 delegates walk out, Bernie supporters.
Yeah.
California, a few other states decided to just totally walk out on the convention. And the fact that the emails that were leaked just days before the convention should have been damning to the DNC. You had things like the DNC calling their Mexican outreach program the Taco Bell Initiative. Imagine the outrage if Donald Trump had said that. Or anyone in the Republican Party had said that. But Donald Trump opened his mouth and took the news coverage off of the Democrats. He's essentially letting them get away with all these things and putting the news cycle onto Trump. It's all about Trump, Trump, Trump. At this point, he's the nominee. His supporters can fight the battles against people like Cant, against people at the DNC who are calling him out. Let his supporters fight those battles. Donald Trump's only priority, the only thing he should be talking about, is beating Hillary Clinton. And at this point, he is making that extremely, if not impossible, to do.
He really should have capitalized on the email scandal that went on with the DNC. He could have definitely stretched that out, kept it in the public eye a lot longer than it was. It seems like no one's even talking about it anymore.
No.
And it's only been a week.
At this point, I'm almost hesitant to say it, but at this point, we have less than 100 days to go. It is do or die at this point. And if something doesn't change drastically, and I mean drastically, take away his Twitter account, make sure he's reading off the teleprompter for his speeches. Don't let him go out there and make crazy interviews like he did with the Washington Post yesterday, Tuesday, where he said he's not going to endorse the Speaker of the House or John McCain. Make sure he doesn't do stuff like that, and just maybe it might be a close election, because up until this past 36 hours where he's really fallen, most of the experts were saying, you know what, this is a close election. Either of them really has a chance to win it. And at this point, Hillary Clinton is sitting back and she is loving her life right now. She's looking good.
You brought up having him stick on topics, stick to the script. They're actually talking about having a senior advisor travel with him to help him stay on message at his different rallies. Whenever he's sort of going on his little rants that don't really make coherent sentences.
Right.
He can just, tap him or something and tell him, you know what,
Move
along. To the script.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting is that Trump's children were, in my opinion, much, much, much better at vocally expressing what I would assume is Donald Trump's policies. Sometimes it's hard to put together what exactly he's saying, but his children were much better advocates for the Republican Party than he is. But it's real interesting is the fact that his children are actually tied up right now dealing with the Trump's organization, their huge company. It's basically his children who are running it while their dad is out campaigning for the presidency, which is a real blow to the campaign because his children were quite honestly excellent.
Honestly, I think his sons were better politicians than even his daughters.
Right.
All of them were better politicians than Trump is.
Right. So at this point, right before, we're going to take a quick commercial break, but basically to summarize this, Donald Trump is failing. He is falling in the polls faster than I've ever seen anyone fall in the polls. And unless we do something drastic and something, changes in a very big way, Hillary Clinton is going to be sitting in that Oval Office come January 11th or
20th.
Yeah. If we don't do something now, Hillary Clinton will win, and the country will continue this Marxist transformation. So don't go anywhere. We're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, we're going to talk about the Iran controversy. Was it a ransom payment or not? Well, we'll have the story.
And that, class, is why America is the worst country in the history of the world.
Are you sick of your professors telling you lies?
Now remember, children, if you're white, it means you're privileged. Don't ever forget that.
Do you sit through class convinced that your head is going to explode at any given moment? Sounds like you could use some backup. Visit youthrevolt.org for exclusive content produced by young conservatives for young conservatives. Youth Revolt features a dedicated team of radio hosts, political columnists, and video bloggers, all of whom are 100% committed to taking back the future of this country. So what are you waiting for? Tune out your Marxist professor and visit youthrevolt.org now.
8 years with Obama, and now no one knows what bathroom to use.
The Wise Conservative Show, Wednesdays at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Only on Youth Revolt.
Tune in to Millennials Rising, 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time on Sunday nights, for a conservative outlook on pop culture and American politics. Together we can reinstitute values back into our nation's young people and help create an alternative path away from the mainstream liberal agenda. Tune in to Millennials Rising, 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time, Sunday nights, only on Youth Revolt. The idea behind Youth Revolt is to let them, these liberal professors, let them know that we are here and we're ready to fight.
Youth Revolt. Speak without fear.
Hey, little boy, you want some free college?
Bernie Sanders, that creepy uncle your mom warned you about. The Wise Conservative Show. Wednesdays at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Only on Youth Revolt. All right, this is the Wise Conservative Show. You're here with Dakota and Connor Wise. So now, the breaking news of the morning of the day in general was that the U.S. supposedly sent $400 million in cash to Iran the very same day that 4 of our hostages were released. Experts are calling this ransom, or some of the experts. Other people are saying, including the president's administration, that this was just a coincidence. So we're going to weigh in on this. So the background of the story. The very day that the Iran nuclear deal actually was implemented, and the very same day we got back 4 of our hostages that had been held prisoner in Iran, we had a plane fly $400 million in Swiss francs, euros, and other currencies, because there's still a ban on conducting business in Iran with U.S. dollars. But we had what would be worth $400 million transfer to Tehran, and it's raising a lot of eyebrows because this looks a whole lot like what a ransom would look like.
Oh, definitely. There's a lot of people, a lot of high officials, obviously not in this current administration, those who have been in past administrations, who are weighing in on this, and they all say that this looks definitely like we paid Iran to get back those prisoners. It looks like we set a very bad precedent. And the Obama administration, they're saying, oh, huge coincidence, guys.
So apparently, the story goes, is that this was the first installment of what amounts to a, get this, $1.7 billion settlement, which is supposedly resolving claims that were made at an international tribunal in which the United States is required to pay Iran for a failed arms deal for fighter jets that we made during 1979. $1.7 billion. You know, that's
including interest. They're making us pay interest on it.
For a failed arms deal we made in 1979. And we're okay with sending Iran, the number one state sponsor of terror, an additional $1.7 billion. Of course, this pales into the hundreds of billions that were freed by the Iran nuclear deal, which has left Iran on a path to get a nuke, if not this decade, definitely within the next 20 years.
Well, Obama is actually saying that putting this in within the deal, because it was implemented at the same time, actually saved the U.S. billions of dollars by paying it off when he did.
Right. Instead of going to trial, he's saying that this deal, because this was actually separate of the Iran nuclear deal, he stressed that this had nothing to do with negotiations, and it was 2 different teams working on it. All right. So this supposedly saved us billions of dollars. Really? So, because an international court says so, we're going to send a country that chants death to the United States billions of dollars. Call me, not fair. Call me crazy. But I don't care if it's fair or not if we don't send them money that supposedly we owe. They're chanting death to the United States, not just their people. Their supreme ruler is chanting death to the United States. I believe it was on this same day that the Iran nuclear deal was actually implemented. So call me crazy for not sending any amount of money to this country whatsoever.
And then they go, and this is after we implemented this deal and this installment, they go and they write death to Israel on the side of a missile and shoot it towards Israel. They had that written on it. And they also capture some of our sailors.
So let's take stock of what exactly we've gotten with Iran over the past year and a half. We've gotten this failed deal, which, by all accounts, we gained absolutely nothing from. We freed up hundreds of billions of dollars for Iran, and apparently we sent an additional $1.7 billion, or are going to. We got back 4 Americans, actually 5. One was later released. In return, we released 7 prisoners that we had. Iran is allowed to conduct their own safety tests. So basically, to ensure that they're not getting a nuclear weapon, they're allowed to audit themselves and come back and say, you know what, yeah, we're not building a weapon. We're not building a bomb. Everything's good. Just go back to your country. We can't even get safety inspectors in to... we can't even get safety inspectors into the country to check what they're doing with their nuclear material. We got absolutely nothing from this deal. 100% nothing.
It's definitely going down in history as the worst deal in history ever conducted throughout all of history, because it literally just provided funds and materials to one of our enemies, because that's what Iran is. They're one of our enemies.
And make no mistake about that. They are an enemy. They're working with North Korea.
They want to do us in. They've worked with Russia in the past. They've worked with North Korea. They've worked with Assad. They've worked with all of our enemies over there. And now that we're just giving them supplies to actually build a nuclear nation, build bombs and missiles that they can use against us, their enemy.
Oh, and what's disturbing is that even if Iran is not capable, which let's just pretend in this hypothetical world, Iran's not going to build a nuclear weapon themselves. Their rocket technology is progressing at alarming rates. And they're getting all buddy-buddy with Kim Jong-un over at North Korea, who, by international estimates, has close to 90 nuclear warheads which are available. So you have Iran, which has great rockets. You have North Korea, which has nuclear warheads. Both are chanting death to the United States. It doesn't take a real genius to figure out what we could possibly see happen in the future if Iran and North Korea were able to put together some sort of alliance.
Well, and that's exactly what they're working on. But still, Obama defends this. Obama and Hillary Clinton, the masterminds behind this brilliant plan, they're still defending it, saying that it was a good idea, that it improved relations with Iran, that it made it so that we're buddy-buddy now, that we're friends. It made it so that Iran is finally one of the big nations, and that's a good thing.
What's absolutely essential in the Middle East is the projection of power. A lot of these cultures don't respond to weakness. They respond to power. You can try and win over the hearts and mind, but at the end of the day, what actually wins the war on terror is power. And right now, Iran is in the position of power for the region, and they're making huge gains in places like Iraq and Syria, which have been destabilized by ISIS. And Iran is looking like the powerful player in the region. We have Iran taking United States Navy 10 people hostage, forcing them to apologize on video.
On national television.
They played it all over the Middle East, and they're building statues to commemorate the event. So we have Iran projecting, you know what? Hey, the United States apologizes to us. The United States gives us money. We can do what we want. And at the same time, you have Iran, who are actually funding a lot of these extremist groups. And suddenly, people aren't afraid of the United States anymore. They got their buddy Iran to back them up. And it is detrimental to our efforts at stopping ISIS. The Taliban is starting to try to make another push. The whole Middle East is on fire, and Iran is flaming the flames against the United States.
Iran is not going to help whatsoever, especially now that we're giving them billions upon billions of dollars. And just to set an even worse precedent with them in the Middle East, now we're supposedly paying ransoms for our prisoners, which also, keep in mind, they have taken 3 of our prisoners since this went down.
They've taken 3 additional hostages since this quote-unquote not ransom happened, right?
So now we're going to have to probably pay to get those Americans back because of this precedent set by Barack Obama.
It's just a failed. I don't care if it wasn't a ransom. If it looks like ransom, it sounds like ransom, it's probably ransom. So whether or not it was a coincidence, it was a oversight by the State Department, the President's administration, whoever orchestrated this. They made a real mistake. So we'll have to see in the future how this plays out. Right now, I'm just going to assume it was actually ransom because that's what it looks like. But we'll keep you guys updated on any changes. Now, switching over to terror on the domestic front, prosecutors are bringing the first ever case against a law enforcement officer who is being charged with terrorism. So basically, you have a patrol officer in D.C., in the D.C. region, buy $250 worth of gift cards for someone he thought was working with the Islamic State group, and he's now facing jail time.
So what happened is this person that he thought was a Islamic State informant was actually a undercover FBI agent. And so he gave these gift cards to the FBI agent so that he could buy messaging applications and different things,
right?
So he could actually contact with the Islamic State and with him. Right. And so the FBI, undercover FBI agent, he got these $250 worth of gift cards, and he's like, wow, you actually do think I'm for the Islamic State? And they arrested him.
So he has been under surveillance since 2010 when he traveled to Libya at least once in 2011. And then he is believed to have joined rebel forces who were seeking to oust Gaddafi in Libya. He then traveled with body armor, a Kevlar helmet, and other military-style items. So apparently he was very paranoid about law enforcement spying on him, and he would often take out the battery of his cell phone when he wanted to go somewhere and talk. Clearly that didn't exactly stop the FBI from getting on his case. So to make things worse, most of the reports by his neighbors are just saying this was a creepy guy.
Even his co-workers.
Right. Apparently his car had anti-Israel stickers all over it. He had some complaints against him and his from his homeowners association because of his untidy front yard. That doesn't really play into this case. I'm not exactly sure why it's part of the report. But so apparently most of his neighbors described him as standoffish. Some of his fellow co-workers found him a little weird because he showed up to unofficial firearm training, just a day out at the firing range with an AK-47 style rifle and just tons and tons of ammunition.
I mean, this story, honestly, it's not that different from... We've had 20 cases of this in the past year of ISIS-related arrests. But what's different about this one is it was a law enforcement agent, and that's the first time that we've had that. So that's why the story is really hitting the news cycle and actually making the front story for a bunch of different news sources, because it's actually showing that even people in our law enforcement are being affected by the propaganda, you could say, of the Islamic State.
Now, authorities are saying that in their years, well, it's been about 6 years now, his purchase of $250 worth of gift cards was the first action that actually crossed the line and made it actually illegal what he was doing. Now, I think the humor in this case, I'm hesitant to use humor in a domestic terror case, but the humor of this case is that he is going to prison for $250. And it's carrying, he faces some actual jail time because this is a terror case. So maybe not the brightest criminal out there.
But then again, he did want to join the Islamic State, so that, honestly, most people who do that aren't the most intelligent. But it shows that, honestly, the Islamic State, they're reaching more and more people. That's what I get out of this, not so much the humor of it, but that ISIS is having a lot more connections within our country, and even just those 20 arrests that I spoke of earlier, that's quite a bit for domestic terror-related arrests for people trying to join ISIS.
Right. He's actually the 100th person since March 2014 to be charged with the offense of trying to support the Islamic State. That's 100 people that have been radicalized by the Islamic State, because we can't shut off their propaganda. We're having a real hard time dealing with things like Twitter, dealing with, as has been shown to be the case, when they insert these people into mosques and they just slowly over time start radicalizing. You know, we saw that with people like the San Bernardino attack or the Orlando shooter. What should have been normal Muslim Americans are slowly becoming radicalized, and ISIS is supposedly on the decline. We've taken back half their territory, but that doesn't mean they don't already have operatives here. They're already convincing people to join them. And it's my prediction that we're going to have to deal with the ramifications of ISIS long after their territory has been destroyed.
Well, yeah, you can't kill out an idea, and that's exactly what the Islamic State is running on. They're running on the idea of them being the caliphate, of them having this radical Islamic mindset, and people are buying into that idea throughout the entire world, throughout our allies and our own country, and you can't kill out an idea, so they will be here for years, even after we wipe out their territory.
Exactly, and so it's going to be absolutely key that we allow our law enforcement officers the tools that they're going to need to track these people down. If they need to monitor mosques more heavily, what the hell are we doing stopping them? If we can stop a tragedy like Orlando from happening, then hell, let's put a microphone in a mosque. Who cares? You know what? It's like if you had a neighborhood that had a higher crime rate, you're going to have more police cars, you're going to have more police officers patrolling that area versus, the nice gated community.
Now, of course, with that, you run into the whole freedom of religion.
We're not stopping them from practicing their religion. We're not preventing them from doing whatever they want to do. But when we have a religion that is pretty much housing extremists, you have to do something to stop it, because while not every Muslim is a terrorist, you don't see people killing in the name of Jesus Christ. You don't see people going out and killing in the name of atheism. The only terror attacks are coming from Muslims and Muslim Americans. And so I see no problem with keeping tighter tabs on people. I'm not saying create a database. I'm not saying we need to, make them wear some sort of symbol on their clothing. But if we need to build, number one, stronger relationships with the leaders of the Muslim community and ensure that they're actually speaking out against the acts of, domestic terror and the Islamic State, because there's a lot of Muslim leaders that have been noticeably silent on the issue. And secondly, when we see where the problem is coming from, we need to be able to tackle it. Political correctness is costing Americans their lives, and I am sick and tired of it.
Well, this is one of the issues that we kind of disagree on. Of course, we're different people. I don't think we should be necessarily monitoring every mosque. It should definitely be, case by case. If you do see some suspicious activity, go ahead, monitor it.
But what about the people who are afraid to speak out because of political correctness? Say in the San Bernardino attack, their neighbors thought they had seen suspicious activity, men coming and going, doing suspicious things, but they didn't want to speak out because they were afraid they'd be labeled as racist.
Well, again, yeah, we look out for that suspicious activity with law enforcement more deeply. We, patrol for domestic terrorism a lot more. And if we do, as in the case of Orlando, if we do actually have them in and we look at them multiple times, of course, then we keep them on on the record that we did, interview them, that we did have them on a terrorism watch list, so that they can't, go and purchase firearms and ammunition if they're on a terrorist watch list.
But what about the mosques like the Orlando shooter went to? The very first American suicide bomber actually went to that mosque. And clearly he was able to radicalize at least one person there. You can't tell me that it's not in our best interest when we know someone has been radicalized somewhere to monitor anyone that they may have had contact with.
Well, exactly. It is. And we know that they're radicalized, so in that specific case we monitor it. I'm just saying we shouldn't monitor every single mosque as you seem to be ensuing.
All right. Well, you know what? We're just going to have to agree to disagree. So our final story before our second and last commercial break. Wow, this one's a doozy. The State Department doled out 6 figures for one piece of art that was made out of tiny little balls of thread to be displayed at an embassy in Pakistan.
Yes, we spent that much money. It was actually $185,000 for... I don't even know if you can call it art, honestly.
It sure doesn't look like
balls
art.
of yarn, basically, on, I don't know, a plate or something.
98 balls of thread.
It's not something that we should be spending our money on, first off. We're $19.4 trillion in debt now. This is just another waste of money, but it's not the first time that something like this has actually happened. The VA department, they spent $20 million on artwork. Meanwhile, the veterans that they were supposed to be caring for were dying on a wait list. So this definitely isn't the first time that the U.S. government has spent their funds on quote-unquote artwork instead of actually doing their job.
It's just kind of despicable. The waste is so rampant within the government that most people don't even, they turn a blind eye. Sure, it's only $185,000, which is, nothing in the federal budget. But imagine how many times stuff like this gets put through the cracks. It has to add up to a fairly decent size amount of money. I mean, $185,000 for one piece of artwork. That's more of just a clue of what we are facing in the government, of the waste and fraud and corruption that we are facing.
It's no wonder why we're so far in debt with more stories like this popping up every week.
I believe it's every week, Senator Rand Paul puts out his waste report, and some of the things in it are just astonishing. I mean, it goes from giving millions of dollars to a golf club manufacturer so they could investigate golf in space.
Not to mention the $20 million to build a gas station in the Middle East.
Right. So this is just the icing on the cake. The government's corrupt, wasting our tax dollars. We already knew that, though. So coming up after the break, we're going to talk about the liberal indoctrination in schools and the new Reeducation Camps. Don't go anywhere. This is the Wise Conservative Show.
Hi, everybody. This week, I want to make sure that you're aware of a group of young people that are out to reverse my fundamental transformation of America. This organization is called Youth Revolt. And before I go any further, I must urge folks not to visit youthrevolt.org. Now, Michelle and I, we're both gravely concerned that if this group succeeds, our children may not grow up to see the Marxist country that we will hopefully one day become. So I repeat, do not visit youthrevolt.org. And remember, I've got a pen and I've got a phone, and I will use them if I have to. Thank you, and have a great rest of your day.
I don't feel no ways tired. You know? Don't let anybody tell you that, it's corporate corporations and businesses that create jobs.
Hillary Clinton, just another political clown. The Wise Conservative Show, Wednesdays at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, only on Youth Revolt.
And that, class, is why America is the worst country in the history of the world.
Are you sick of your professors telling you lies?
Now remember, children, if you're white, it means you're privileged. Don't ever forget that.
Do you sit through class convinced that your head is going to explode at any given moment? Sounds like you could use some backup. Visit youthrevolt.org for exclusive content produced by young conservatives for young conservatives. Youth Revolt features a dedicated team of radio hosts, political columnists, and video bloggers, all of whom are 100% committed to taking back the future of this country. So what are you waiting for? Tune out your Marxist professor and visit youthrevolt.org now.
Hey, little boy, you want some free college?
Bernie Sanders, that creepy uncle your mom warned you about. The Wise Conservative Show, Wednesdays at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, only on Youth Revolt. All right, this is the Wise Conservative Show. You're here with Dakota and Connor Wise. Liberal indoctrination within our school system is something that we've talked about a lot here. It's the very reason we started Youth Revolt, was to fight this liberal indoctrination and the leftism that is just rampant within our education system. And it's the whole reason that I had to spend a week in D.C. last week learning how to stand up to these professors who are basically, what it comes down to, indoctrinating our students. So it's really outrageous when I see this story, and this story has me pissed off. I am triggered right now. So a student is facing a 50-day suspension from their student government board where they hold an elected position because they said that all lives matter. So, of course, the Black Lives Matter movement has been making a huge deal out of people saying all lives matter. And so the offending post that has caused such a national outrage and so much controversy is, and I quote, hashtag forget Black Lives Matter, more like all lives matter. That's it. No use of vulgar words or controversial words. It was hashtag forget Black Lives Matter, all lives matter. So now in response, the student is being ordered to attend, and I quote, diversity training.
Folks, this is direct proof of the liberal indoctrination that's going on within our school system. We've had other stories like this on our show before, as my co-host said. I mean, we're both a part of Youth Revolt, which is dedicated to fighting this. But folks, this is clear as day that this is a problem. Now just because, you say that you don't support the Black Lives Matters movement, now you're getting banned from the student body
being targeted for your beliefs.
Exactly. If you hold any conservative belief within a college campus, even some high school campuses, then you have a target on your back. You're outcast by the actual school for being a little bit different, for thinking as a conservative.
And so I love some of the responses that students on the campus were issuing to the media. Take for interest the BSU president, and I quote, for her to say on her social media, forget Black Lives Matter, it's almost as if to say, if all of us were to die tomorrow, she wouldn't care. Folks, she didn't say anything vulgar. She said all lives matter. Is Black lives not included in all lives? Is there some sort of distinction that I am not aware of? And this person's going to sit there. It's almost as if she wouldn't care if she died. Seems to me that she cares a whole lot who dies, and that people are dying in the name of Black Lives Matter. You have to remember, she posted this hours after cops were shot and ambushed and assaulted in Texas in the name of Black Lives Matter. And so, you know what? It's a little understanding if she's saying, you know what? Forget Black Lives Matter. All lives matter. Cops' lives matter. White people lives matter. Green lives matter. It doesn't matter. They all matter. All lives matter. I don't see the outrageous.
I don't understand why the left attacks us for saying that everybody matters, that, we care about everyone.
Well, this is the new form of racism and discrimination.
They seem to forget that they're the ones being racist in this matter.
If it's racist to say that I think all lives matter equally, then hell, label me racist. I'm not going to single out, you know what, white lives matter or Asian lives matter. No, they all matter. Why is this even a debate? Why are we even talking about this? Even more. So, another student told her that just for her to say, forget Black Lives Matter, it is a punch in the stomach.
Oh, wow. It physically caused her pain?
Is this coming from a safe zone?
I think it might be. These are the kind of people that have been indoctrinated their whole lives. They've been indoctrinated to think about, all these words, they're hurtful, so we shouldn't be able to say them. And they've just grown up with that. So now that they're getting to these college campuses, if you say anything opposite to them, they think they physically feel pain from it.
So the student who was the vice president for the student government was suspended from her activities for 50 days. And then, okay, that's fine. That's one thing. That's still, trying to enforce your belief. But it gets worse. She was ordered to attend 3 cultural events each month and write a letter of reflection on her Facebook post and make a public presentation detailing the knowledge she has gained about cultural issues facing our society. Wow, that is 100%. That is indoctrination. That is, re-education camps. If you hold a different belief than the leftists on a college campus, they are now being able to go after you, put you down, shame you, and then make you take a class on why you were wrong.
If I were her, I would go, and when you have to write the reflection on the post, I would say, you know what? I was even more right than I thought in the first place. Black Lives Matter is even worse than I thought in the first place.
And then the student government president, who was given all authority to issue any sort of punishment he saw fit, said, and I quote, this is him directly, "The First Amendment prevents a person from being jailed by the government for what they say." He went on to say, "The First Amendment does not prevent people from receiving other consequences for what they say, including workplace discipline." So he's basically admitting what he's doing flies in the face of the First Amendment, but because he's not the government, he's allowed to impose sanctions on another student for disagreeing with him.
This is what we've seen the left do. They continue to attack our First Amendment rights because they disagree with what we're saying.
In the name of diversity and inclusion.
They say that they're being tolerant.
Right.
That's a word that they throw around. And then they're the ones actually saying, oh, you're not like me? Oh, I don't like you. You have to change to be more like my leftist ideals.
And the university has been notably quiet because the student government is apparently a separate entity from the administration of the university. And so the University of Houston issued a statement in which they, and I quote, "continue to stand firm in support of free speech and do not discipline students for exercising their constitutional rights." If you stand for students exercising their constitutional rights, there needs to be action made to prevent this student from being targeted by the left for issuing their opinion. There's the kicker. This was all one person's opinion. She didn't go on the student government's, official page and post as, the student government saying this. She posted on a private account with a private opinion, and she is being targeted and forced to take re-education classes. I'm sorry, but that's bullshit. There's no other way around it. That is ridiculous. I can't comprehend it, and I would probably be trying to sue people at this point.
Definitely, if I was in that, I would make this a huge story. I would contact Fox, all of those different news sources, and have this be the front cover page so that people can get out there and realize how bogus all of this is.
And I don't think people realize just how bad our university college campuses have gotten. And this isn't, conservative students, we're outnumbered. We don't... This is the left actually taking steps to eradicate conservative beliefs from public education campuses. This is the left trying to put down anyone who disagrees with them. And it is simply outrageous. And it's even more outrageous is that they'll get professors out there trying to shame this student. Grown adults trying to target students for their beliefs. How ridiculous is that?
Well, that happened before when students were supporting Ben Shapiro.
Right, and the professors targeted them, not just verbally, but I believe there was a professor who was physically fighting students who were in support of Ben Shapiro.
There were, yeah.
College campuses used to be a place to, challenge ideas and have a healthy discussion on the goings of what was going on in society. But nowadays, we have the liberal students and the liberal professors who apparently are so thin-skinned that anytime anyone disagrees with them, they have to go after them with a pitchfork and basically demand vigilante justice for using the First Amendment. It's outrageous. It's simply outrageous.
Folks, this isn't going to stop. These kind of things aren't going to stop. So we need to stand up to these colleges. We need to stand up to these professors and these students who are trying to take away these other conservatives' First Amendment rights. Because if we don't, this will just get worse. This will get to the point where we can't say anything we want at all without being kicked off a campus or something. So folks, definitely stand up. And if you do have a college professor or high school teacher who is currently indoctrinating his students, that's blatantly supporting the left and kicking out the right from the classroom, then report him to myliberalprofessor.org or .com. We have a website set up for that, a database, and it's because of stuff like this that we have to do this. Honestly, folks, we shouldn't even have to have a database of those professors that are indoctrinating students.
It's ridiculous. So we're going to close up with the last story, and this one is kind of a big deal. It's not getting a lot of press attention, though. The Supreme Court blocked the transgender bathroom choice for now. Basically, the Supreme Court is allowing a Virginia school board to prevent a transgender student from using the boys' bathroom while they continue a legal fight over transgender rights. So the U.S. Supreme Court is basically allowing the school to make a transgender student either use a proper bathroom or they even gave this student the option to use a single stall bathroom if it was such a big deal. And of course, the ACLU.
Yeah, the ACLU.
They said that was discrimination based on Title IX. We can use whatever bathrooms we want to use now. Wow. I don't understand this country anymore. So basically, the Supreme Court is trying to decide whether or not they will actually hear that court case.
They're going to wait, I'm guessing, if they do actually look at it, they're going to wait till the new Supreme Court justice is actually in place. So for now, they have put it on the shelf, waiting to see what will happen. And honestly, I'm surprised, though, that the news didn't pick this up more, because it's kind of a big deal. This was a huge issue just a couple months ago.
Well, it's absolutely ridiculous. And you know what? The whole transgender movement is a little bit ridiculous to begin with. The idea that people can somehow switch gender, be non-gender conforming or something. It's complete ludicrous. If you look at someone's DNA, it's either an XX or an XY. It's binary. You're either a guy or a girl. There's no in between. You know what? If you have a male DNA and you think you're a female, perhaps, just maybe, this is going to get a lot of controversy, if it got out there. Perhaps, if you are born a male and you have male chromosomes, perhaps maybe we should be looking at these people's brains to figure out what the hell is going on in there, because there's clearly some sort of neurological disorder.
Oh,
Definitely. If you have the genetic material to be a guy and you want to be a girl, you clearly have something going on in your brain. There's no other way around it.
I just always find it ironic that the same liberals that are like, oh, we have to follow, it's only science that global warming is going to kill us.
These are just fetuses.
It's just science. They're the ones that throw out the science that, you can either be a man or a woman. You can't, have a sliding scale. There's no gender identity. You're a man or a woman. Period. That's it. No changing it.
So maybe we should be looking into research on why the hell these people think they're a different gender. Clearly something is wrong. Hormone imbalance or, some sort of neurological disease. I'm sorry, but that's what it is. There's a neurological problem. Your DNA says one thing. You can't magically change it. So, you know what? This whole... And it's a tiny amount of people anyway. This really should not even be a debate. There's not enough people in the country to warrant having such a huge argument over things like HB2 in North Carolina.
Well, it wasn't that big of an issue until Obama said that he was going to force all high schools into letting this happen.
Through executive action, which he has favored so heavily. It's really not that big a deal. Number one, there should have never been laws. It should have never had to been necessary to begin with. If someone looks like a girl and they go in to use the girl's restroom and they're a man, number one, no one's ever going to know they're a man. But, what the transgender laws will actually do is allow men who look like men to use the woman's restroom.
Exactly.
I mean, there's no way if, a female looks like a man and she goes in to use the men's restroom, no one's going to know. No one really cares what you're doing in the bathroom. But these laws basically allow weirdos. There's no other way around it.
And there's been cases of it.
Right. It allows these people to use whatever bathroom they want just because, they want a camera in the bathroom or something. I don't know. These people are sick. And so that's what these laws do. They're not protecting the transgender people. It's, you already have a debate on... The left has already started to, stop using the term pedophile. What are we to say that, a 13-year-old, dating a 60-year-old man is wrong?
Love is love.
Love is love, right?
That's their new catchphrase.
You know what? What's to stop someone from loving a tree or a rock? Are we going to allow marriages to anything like that now? What about, goats or something? What's to stop that? Love is love. We can't put a name on love. It's ridiculous. Honestly, there should not even be a debate on this. Gay marriage is one thing. You know what? Okay. That's fine. But when you start getting issues like this, it's to the point where it's just ridiculous. It's like a giant joke. That's what this is. This is a giant joke being played on the country, I think.
It's getting worse, but you know what? This issue, it can't go much farther, honestly. It can't go any farther than just this. So we'll have to see how the Supreme Court actually rules on this when they do actually go on it.
Whether or not they decide to take the case. Because if they just decide not to take the case, then the student is allowed to use whatever bathroom they identify as. So that just about wraps up this, hour of mean conservative talk radio. So as always, you can find us at youthrevolt.org or Spreaker.com/The Wise Conservative Show. We're also live streaming right now at Facebook.com. You can find us under Youth Revolt. Or Instagram, all the social medias. Instagram, _wise_conservative. So until next time, folks, my name is Dakota Wise. With me is my wonderful co-host, Connor Wise. We'd like to thank you for joining in. And until next time, guys, God bless.